Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live, episode 344, almost to 350, guys. It is finally time for Week 1, our Falcoholic Live show to break down this Week 1 matchup. Adnan will be here shortly. He's going to be coming in just a second, so I'm going to get you guys started here for the first couple minutes. Welcome in to Falcoholic Live, presented by FanDuel. Shout out to our presenting sponsor, Love FanDuel. Shout out to those guys. Been working with them obviously at SB Nation as well, but happy to have them on board here with Believe. So thanks to those guys, and we are going to jump right in to some Week 1 talk. We're going to be breaking down the first injury report. There's some notable updates on there, maybe some hopeful ones for the Falcons, and obviously the Bucs pretty banged up as well, so we're going to take a look at that. We're going to break down the latest things we've heard about what the Falcons are working with this week, and of course, going to get into sort of our thoughts on the matchup, how we think the best way for the Falcons to take down the Bucs, how that might look for the Falcons to be able to do that. I think that they absolutely can do it, and I am expecting them to win this game. Maybe that's bold, but hey, if we're not starting bold in Week 1, then I don't know what we're doing. So we're gonna take a look at that. And also, of course, sort of talk about our thoughts going into this Week 1. Have we changed our minds since our season predictions? Are we still feeling really good about this team making the playoffs? Or have things been tempered since we lost Caleb McGarry, and some other things have obviously happened in the meantime as well? So we're going to be getting to all that on tonight's show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Like I said, Adnan will be here in just a sec. So before he gets here, real quick, going to bring you a word from our sponsor tonight as well, ZipRecruiter. Folks, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't been involved as a hiring manager frequently. We do some hiring at the Falcoholic, and we do get a lot of applications. We do get a lot of folks to wade through. It might be nice to have a more sophisticated system to help make it a little bit less time consuming and get you set up with the type of applicants that actually meet your job, right? It takes a while to sort through those resumes, to get in touch with everyone that you want to contact, to find interview time, all that stuff. Well, guess what, guys? The future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up the finding the right people for your roles, so you save valuable time. Now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in just minutes. And look, there's over 320,000 new resumes added to ZipRecruiter every month, which means you can reach more potential hires and fill roles sooner. So what are you waiting for, folks? Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. That's ZipRecruiter, ZIP recruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And it sounds like Adnan's ready to join the show. So let's get this thing going. All right. Adnan, welcome. Hold on, let me update this. All right, there we go. We're full steam ahead. Adnan, welcome in. It's Week 1, buddy. How you doing?
It is Week 1. I'm excited. Despite all of the question marks, despite all of any of the issues, any of the good, any of the bad, the excitement is at its peak level now for us, and I'm sure for 31 other fan bases around the NFL.
Yes, this is the time where everyone can win the Super Bowl. Everyone's a playoff contender.
Everyone's at 0-0.
Everyone, when they say like we're 1-0 or we're gonna start 1-0, we're gonna stay 1-0. This is like actually the case where you actually could be 1-0 or not. It's that time of year. I mean, we were talking. It's funny because we're doing a roundtable on the Falcoholic, which I'm sure you guys will be able to see soon as well.
I need that.
Yeah. That's a good reminder for myself too. But it's the excitement has been dampened a little bit, I feel like, with the Caleb McGarry injury. And look, there's no real way around that. Last year, we had something similar happen where we lost, a guy we were hoping would be a major contributor in the edge room and Braylon Trice in the preseason, along with DeMarco Helms, who we expected to have a larger role in his second year. This year, obviously, it's Caleb McGarry that is out for the year. And it's tough, but yeah.
Look, man, no disrespect to Trice and Helms, but those were both going to be depth guys last year.
I don't know, Trice
form, like that's
yeah. No, that's very fair. Very fair. Yeah. No, a little bit more important perhaps to get Caleb McGarry, but for what it's worth, Michael Penix sounds very confident in Elijah Wilkinson. I guess we'll see how long that lasts, but Hopefully it lasts until Storm Norton can get back at the
I
very
was gonna
least.
say,
But
all it takes
yeah,
is one bad hit, and that confidence sort of wanes.
yeah, it can definitely. I suspect it will ebb and flow. Hopefully we'll have some good moments in there as well. But
Yeah.
there's no doubt that we gotta find a way to weather the offensive tackle situation. But we've also got some updates on the rest of the depth chart. So is that where maybe we should kick things off with that injury report out on? This is the first official injury report of the year. And obviously we have a couple more days, guys, until we get, the official game status. But right now, just 4 players on the Falcons injury report, which not too bad, especially once you see the Bucs injury report. But right now, only 2 DNPs, which is did not practice. If you guys are joining us for the first time or don't know how to read these, DeMarco Hellams is DNP with a hamstring, and Jack Nelson, the reserve offensive tackle, DNP with a calf. But the good news, wide receiver Darnell Mooney is just limited with a shoulder injury. So he is practicing in some capacity. And Clark Phillips, the third, same way. He is also limited with a rib injury. So obviously, it sucks that maybe we will have to wait to see DeMarco Hellams' debut. The Falcons aren't necessarily leaning on him in a major role right at this moment, but it would sure be nice to have him as a depth piece. But look, Darnell Mooney, if he is available, and it seems like him being limited, the door is still very much open for him to play. But what do you take away immediately from this first peek at the Falcons injury situation?
Yep. I mean, it has to be Darnell Mooney, right? He has been the major story when it comes to the injury report in general. I mean, obviously outside of McGarry, but we know McGarry is going to be out for the season, and Storm Norton, we know he's probably going to be out through the bye week. But Darnell Mooney, I remember he got hurt on day 1? Like it was day 1 of training camp. He dove to try and make an acrobatic catch. I think it was Lamar Jackson who had some coverage on him, and I think Lamar Jackson, obviously no harm intended, but in diving to try and break up the pass, it looked like he sort of landed on Darnell Mooney awkwardly. Mooney's shoulder hits the ground, and since then we haven't seen him since. But him playing in week 1, I won't lie to you, I don't know if he will play in week 1. Midway through training camp, given the vibe of Mooney and given everything that was being talked about, I wouldn't have been shocked had they put him on short-term IR to start the season. But the good news is they haven't, which means they expect him to be out there, within the first 4 games. And this limited tag, even if he doesn't play this week, it's good it's a good omen, and it's a good sign for moving forward. In that it would be great if you can have him for this divisional clash week 1, but if not, then you'll probably have him for week 2, which is another big NFC clash on Sunday Night Football against a very stout Minnesota Vikings defense. But if he doesn't play, then I'm pretty confident in Casey Washington. I feel like he's had a very strong camp. They have played him as that number 2 opposite of Drake London in the walkthroughs that I saw during the joint practices. So I think they've been preparing Casey Washington for this moment if Mooney can't play. And Washington honestly is someone who I think he definitely has more reps with Michael Penix and probably more chemistry with Michael Penix than anyone else in that Falcons receiver room. Because Washington was the guy that was practicing with Penix all throughout last season. Remember, Penix didn't get any first team practice snaps until week 15, until after it was announced that Cousins was being benched. And he was working with Washington throughout the entire season. He was working with Washington throughout all of training camp last year. Washington got promoted up with the ones midway through camp this year. So I don't think this is sort of the sky is falling type scenario for the Falcons if Mooney can't play in week 1, because I feel like Washington and Penix, I feel like they're going to be well connected at this point.
Yeah, that is the nice thing. Like, we probably wouldn't have gotten an opportunity to see Casey Washington in this situation without an injury. And I certainly think that Darnell Mooney is a better player than Casey Washington at this point. But we do at some point need to know, like, is Casey Washington going to be someone that we can rely upon as a rotational receiver? Or maybe could he be a wide receiver 3? Can he be a guy that is more than just a 6th-round pick and sort of more of a depth piece in this offense? I think that's something we will probably get a chance to see if he does play. Whether how much he plays, how much Mooney plays, we're gonna have to see how the practice report kind of continues throughout the week. But at this point, I think there's a solid chance that Mooney does play. With the shoulder injury, we don't know exactly what the injury is, but it's not a lower body injury, not necessarily going to affect his ability to run routes. So it's possible that he'll be, a decoy some of the time if he does play. So I would caution fantasy players maybe to lean away from Mooney this week, regardless of whether he plays or not. But
that's also a good point with the lower body. He should be well conditioned. So, if it was a knee injury, if it was an ankle injury, and he hasn't been running or hasn't been able to start running until like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, but, he should, like, he's probably been, getting his conditioning in, getting his sprints in, like, all throughout all of camp. So if he does go out there, then there should be no, sort of conditioning issues.
Yeah. So I think at this point, hopefully if he is healthy enough to play, I mean, we don't know the nature of the injury, but it's very possible it's a pain management thing, which might mean that he's just on a snap count, or he may need to come off the field if he goes down hard. We know Mooney's a guy that's going to go for the catch, and it may be a situation where he can play some, but not every snap, and it may be something that's going to continue to heal. It may be that there is a risk of re-aggravation at this stage, so they want to limit his exposure. Or it may be that it is just pain management. There's not really a risk of re-aggravation, so they may just let him play as much as he's comfortable. Maybe we'll get some more clarity on that. Probably won't, but by Friday we'll know. And this is a really critical game where I think if he's available, and it's a pain management thing, then I think you kind of have to get him out there, even if it's for some snaps. Just because I think he's the number 2 target on this team, and the Falcons need him. This is a critical game. Maybe the most important game of the first half of the season, even. So the second most important game is the Bucs game in the second half of the season. So this is a critical juncture, and having Mooney available would be big because, like you said, Mooney and Penix didn't get a ton of opportunity to work together last year, but arguably, like, I think Mooney and Penix showed like the second best connection behind Penix and Drake London, right? So those two had an instant connection. They looked like they had a strong instant connection in camp the one day we got to see, unfortunately, and then he missed all of camp. So there may be a ramp-up period there. There may be some rotations. I'm curious to see how the Falcons manage that injury, but there's no doubt that the fact that he's limited is good news, whether he plays this week or it is a little bit of a wait. I think it's good news for this Falcons team that it seems like he is somewhat close, at least, to a return to the field. Because, look, we need him. We need him, that's for sure. Yeah, if Mooney is out or limited, like, this might be a Pitts week. If you're speaking of fantasy takes, this could actually be a Pitts week because Pitts is probably the team's top deep threat if Mooney's out. So, Pitts might end up getting some more run or some more targets in the situation where Mooney might be missing time or snaps. So maybe consider a Pitts start this week, a little Pitts redemption week 1 game here. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the rest of this report, not too notable. Clark Phillips is probably the top outside depth corner, but he's also limited, so it seems like he's probably going to play, but we'll have to monitor that over the remainder of the week. But the more interesting thing here, I think, is the Bucs injury report, where 3 critical players for the Bucs did not practice, although 4, I guess. Well, I don't know, 5 maybe even, but one of them was just a personal absence. But the player that it's a personal absence is maybe questionable. Maybe we should be more concerned about this player not practicing for personal reasons. But we know Tristan Wirfs is not going to play. He did not practice. He's not going to play.
Big for the Falcons. That's their best player.
Yeah, Chris Godwin, we know he's not going to play. He did not practice either. Vita Vea is also not practicing with a foot injury. Now, I'm not sure his game status is in doubt, but clearly he's not healthy if he's not practicing. So, we'll see how it progresses, but obviously Vea would be a massive loss. I mean, he's kind of like their only good interior run defender. I mean, Kalijah Cansey, very good pass rusher, don't get me wrong, but Vita Vea is like the teeth of their run defense, essentially. So that would be a massive loss. Hassan Reddick is the guy that is not practicing for personal reasons. Now, like, normally I wouldn't bat an eye at a personal designation because it's not a big deal. But Hassan Reddick makes me bat an eye on, not like just a little bit. Like, I have no idea what this is about. It could be completely benign and like no major issue here, but I'm just saying, like, maybe there is something to be mildly concerned about here if I was a Bucs fan that he's not practicing.
I mean, yeah, Hassan Reddick is their pass rush, like more or less. Like they're over relying on Hassan Reddick, like not just now, but in a macro sense for the season. They're really, really, gambling on a Hassan Reddick bounce back season for their pass rush to sort of stay afloat. And I mean, you're talking about essentially their best pass rusher, possibly, allegedly, if he is what he was, and their best, defender overall in Vita Vea, and obviously best run defender, both missing today. Now, you got to add the caveat: it is Wednesday, especially someone like Vea, who is a veteran player. It's not really uncommon. Look, if you told me that 7-8 weeks from now Vita Vea will miss every single Wednesday practice, I wouldn't. That wouldn't be like any earth-shattering news, because those veteran guys where I feel like it's one of those things where if he has even a little bit of an ailment, on his leg or on his foot, they're going to sort of take it easy with him when it comes to Wednesday. I'll be a lot more curious about tomorrow and on Friday. If Vea misses practice tomorrow, if Reddick misses practice tomorrow, then it's sort of like, the alarm bells will start going off a little bit. But that's the sort of disadvantage to us having the show on Wednesdays, is that, we're talking about these injuries right now, and obviously we have to talk about the possibility. But when it comes to Wednesday, there's just such a high probability of it being nothing that it just sort of is what it is. But we obviously have to mention it because, maybe it turns into something.
Yeah. And again, it's a personal. So typically a personal designation is not going to raise alarm flags. But just because it's Hassan Reddick, who has a history of sitting out for personal reasons, I don't know of any bad blood or anything weird going on here. So this is just more. I wouldn't really mention it if it wasn't Hassan Reddick. But yeah, I think it's worth mentioning because of that. But we know Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs are not going to play. They're probably not going to play for at least a few weeks.
I did get some good news. Rashad White looks like he's going to play. Originally, we didn't know. Antoine Winfield, there was some question with him. It seems like he'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cade Otton, I guess they're putting him as questionable, but he has a strong chance of playing. So it's not as dire for the Bucs as we thought it would have been coming into week one, maybe about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Like, I guess Christian Izien is the only other DNP, and the Bucs said that's a pain tolerance issue. So again, he may play even if he doesn't practice much, and it may just be how much can he tolerate being out there. Their rookie corner, second-round pick, Benjamin Morrison, he's missed almost all of training camp. He was limited today, though, so that could be a positive sign for his availability. But, again, didn't really get many reps, so he may not be ready to actually play if it comes to it. I don't know that he would be starting one way or the other, but something to monitor. And like you said, Cade Otton is the other one to watch, starting tight end. Pretty good receiving tight end as well. Limited with the groin injury. And, again, these limited ones, at this point, I wouldn't be concerned about anyone that's limited on Wednesday, but if they continue to be limited or they get downgraded to DNP, that's when you start having some concern. So
yeah, normally like that's sort of the algorithm when it comes to anyone's injury report. If you get downgraded at all later on, even from full practice to limited, then it's a concern because normally if you go from full practice Wednesday to limited Thursday, it means that there was probably an injury in practice. And then if you go from limited to DNP, then it's sort of even worse. I mean, in some cases, it's sort of even worse. But that Friday injury report is the big one.
Yeah.
For a veteran, especially if you go 3 days limited, it's normally fine. But if anyone's missing practice outright on Friday, then it's sort of like, okay, like this dude is probably 50-50 at best of suiting up.
Yeah. So, we will sort of see how this develops, but at this point, the Bucs definitely looking, at least equally roughed up, if not far more roughed up compared to the Falcons at this stage. And we'll have to monitor Vea, because I think that would be a significant loss as well. That might actually impact what the Falcons want to do offensively. And in terms of, they don't really have any other good run defending interior players. So that might be like we talked about the Falcons running more inside, and this might, if Vita Vea is not playing, it might be like, all right, time to go. Like, we're all right. Chris Lindstrom, I hope you got your hope you ate your Wheaties this morning, because you're going to be caving in the interior pretty much every play, buddy. So we'll see how that develops. But good.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, it's sort of a no excuses type thing for the Falcons, even with the injuries, because the Bucs are also missing their blindside tackle, who's, more important to them than Caleb McGarry is to the Falcons. I mean, no disrespect to Caleb McGarry, but Wirfs is, I mean, I think you could say he's probably a top 3 left tackle in the NFL at this point. And then, Chris Godwin, who's their number 2 wide receiver, he's going to be out. Jalen McMillan, who's their number 3 wide receiver, he's going to be out as well. Meanwhile, the Falcons, may or may not have Darnell Mooney, but then beyond Mooney, obviously you're missing Helms, but Helms is a depth piece at safety. He's not going to start for you. And, it would suck if Helms is out. But yeah, the Bucs are way more banged up than the Falcons coming into this game. Way more.
Yeah. So we'll definitely are going to get a youth movement for both teams. Like, we're going to see at least one rookie starting on offense for the Bucs. We know Emeka Egbuka is going to be the number 2 receiver for Tampa Bay. We don't have any idea if Egbuka is going to be playing the slot, or if they're going to have him play outside and they're going to have like Sterling Shepard or somebody else in the slot. But the Bucs are already, like, in week 1, they're going deep down their depth chart. Egbuka was originally going to be their wide receiver 3. He has to move up to wide receiver 2. And then now another receiver is needed because Jalen McMillan's out as well. So, like, they can't just go to McMillan, who is also awesome. Shout out to McMillan for winning my dynasty championship for me with that elite performance over the last couple of games. But now it's going to be Sterling Shepard, maybe Ryan Miller. I mean, I don't know, but big downgrade for the Bucs, who I think their calling card offensively has typically been their dominant receiving core. They did pivot last year, like when they lost Chris Godwin and Evans had to miss time to more running, and it was effective. Bucky Irving, I think, showed that he's a very dangerous rushing threat. But I think a lot of their run game improvement had to do with the scheme that Liam Cohen implemented, and it was very good the way he blended the run and pass game together, took advantage of teams having to sit back and defend the pass. I think there's going to be a downgrade in the play calling for Tampa Bay. I think there's just no way around that. How big of an impact that has? Yeah, 3 times. Come on, No, so not to say in any way that the Bucs offense will be bad. I don't think they will be bad, but I think there's going to be a step back in the play calling that's probably going to make them more of like a fringe top 10 offense instead of like a top 5 offense. So, and also Baker Mayfield, like, probably not going to throw 40 touchdowns again. Let's be honest. So look, he's still good. Like, I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's not good, but like, I'm not trying to say
last year. We said all of this last year.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But if I'm going to continue. I think it was logical and reasonable, and we were far from the only people with that take.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
And I'm going to go back to that well again because because I don't think they're not going to get that lucky again. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. Like,
I'm not going to lie. Like, I do think that there are some things with the Bucs where they'll sort of regress to the mean. Sorry, I'm in brain rot mode. Regress to the mean. And I think the main thing is special teams. It's the kicking game. I'm not here to disrespect Chase McLaughlin. I'm talking about the other half of the kicking game, in that I think the stat was the Bucs had the most missed field goals against them, or missed kicks against them last season. And that's sort of one of those like crazy stats where, you're not going to really get that lucky again. Meanwhile, the Falcons had the least amount of missed kicks against them. I think there was one missed
Yeah,
field goal like
one,
all
I think,
season.
all season. Yeah. So
Like every kicker became prime Justin Tucker against the Falcons last year. So I do think that played a part in that division race for sure last year, and I don't think that that's going to be something that Tampa Bay will sort of get away with. But when it comes to sort of the offense, when it comes to Baker, I think it may just be time to admit that Baker Mayfield's just really good. Like I think he's going to have another really good season. I think he is the best quarterback in the division. And I mean, 40 touchdowns this year, that is pretty lofty. If you forced me to make that bet, I would make that bet. I would take the under on that. But still, I think this is a division where Tampa Bay is not really going to just give it to you. They're not going to roll over, and they're not going to hand it over. They are 4-time division champions. I think this is one where if you really want the NFC South, you have to go and get it if you're the Falcons. It's not just going to be, you're not going to back your way into a division title. You have to go out there and you have to take care of business. You have to probably beat some of these teams where it's a big 50-50 if you're going to beat them. And, you probably have to create some upsets over the course of the season, because I think despite the fact that the Bucs have another first-time play caller, I think their offense is just so talented that they're going to sort of overcome the first-time play caller sort of like jitters. And I think the Bucs are going to be a very worthy foe again this year, and that sort of makes this game even more important. Come to sort of get out of this week one with the win when you have that chance. You have this chance where Wirfs isn't playing. You have this chance where Godwin's out, McMillan's out. All of these guys are on track to be back, in that next game in Tampa Bay. That's going to be a Thursday night road game at Tampa, and those are really, really difficult to win. Divisional Thursday night games like this game. I know it's taboo to say that a game is a must win in week one, but it sort of feels like it a little bit, especially when you look at the schedule moving forward. At Minnesota is going to be a hellacious environment, a hellish environment next week in Minnesota for their season opener, on Sunday Night Football in that very raucous and loud stadium. Then you should beat the Panthers division game. I've talked my shit about Bryce Young. I'm backing it up. But then after that, I'm standing on business with that. But then after that, you have Washington, Buffalo, San Francisco, Miami could be revamped much better this year. Things can start derailing really quickly if you start the season 0-2. You sort of really need this one.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a great point. Is that we were talking about this in the group chat earlier. It's like the Falcons have a brutal 7-8 week opening stretch where they're going to play the majority of the teams that are playoff teams, or at least that were playoff teams last year, all in the front of this schedule. And so it's likely that this team will go into, the middle of the season with a losing record. However, they have a couple of games that they just need to win and they'll be okay. And those are the division games. So certainly we hope that the Falcons can split with some of these playoff teams on the schedule, right? Like maybe they could steal a win against the Vikings or the Commanders or something like that. Teams that are good, but not unassailable by any means. Probably not beating the Bills, let's be honest. So we're not, maybe not expect that one. But otherwise, if they can beat the Bucs in week one, I think we're going to be feeling great, because that's the game in this stretch that they have to win. And then they have to beat the Panthers. You're not going to go very far if you can't beat the goddamn Panthers. I'm sorry. If you can't beat the Panthers at home, just wrap it up, right? I mean, come on. This is the toughest stretch of your schedule. You got to find some wins in here. The the Panthers is a must-win game too. If you can get those two division wins and be 2-0 in the division, even if you're 2-4, but you're 2-0 in the division, you're okay. It's not ideal, certainly, but it's okay.
And look, guys, by no means am I saying that the Bucs are or that the Vikings are, in the same breath as, let's say, the Bills or,
Right.
the Chiefs or anything. Like, the Vikings game is doable. I'm just saying that's going to be a very, very difficult environment. We know Brian Flores is arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league right now, if not probably top 3. I know Spagnuolo's up there, and that's another debate entirely. But that Bucs defense, or excuse me, that Vikings defense is very scary. But yeah, I mean, it will be JJ McCarthy's second game ever. I'm not a JJ McCarthy believer in general.
Neither is the Ringer, apparently. The QB rankings came out today. He was behind Michael Penix. So
yeah, as he should be. Like I don't. This is just a macro. I don't think that JJ McCarthy was worth the first round pick, and I don't think that he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. But Justin Jefferson, I see he has that hamstring ailment right now. He could be limited. Jordan Addison is out for the first 3 games. So, I mean, the same way that things can start derailing if you lose some of these games is the same way that, things can start to look up really quickly if you win this first game against Tampa Bay. And then all of a sudden it's, we're facing a rookie quarterback next week. Sure, it's in Minnesota, but, they're ailing as well. They're, without Addison. They could be without Jefferson or with a limited Jefferson. Maybe you start 2-0, and then all of a sudden 2-0 with Carolina coming in. Things can start. You have a chance to really give yourself a lot of cushion going into that really brutal stretch against Washington and against Buffalo and against, San Francisco. And then you do have your bye week in there. And then all of a sudden Storm Norton's coming back after the bye week. But, I think the vibes, the mood, everything starts with this game. Everything starts here because you win and you're talking, maybe we could be 3-0, you lose. And it's like, 1-4 isn't too far-fetched. So
yeah,
this is a huge game, not just because it's a division game, but also because you really want to set the tone correctly to start the season.
Yeah, and it's been something that this team has struggled with, especially last year. Just that game left a terrible taste in our mouth. We left that game feeling really bad about the offensive staff, the system, Kirk Cousins. It was just a complete disaster. And luckily the Falcons kind of scrapped that approach pretty much immediately. So kudos to Zac Robinson for pivoting away from the permanent pistol approach. Don't think that's going to be a thing this year, so don't worry too much about that, folks. But at the same time, the Falcons do have to find a way to win this game. There's no doubt about it, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Real quick, want to get to donation from Alex Foster with the $10. Thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate you. Says, unlike the Panthers' trash talk lately and the Saints being ... I think we can all infer what he means there. Shit is what I think maybe he means. Yeah, I'll allow you. You can. Those are my words, not Alex's, but I think that was the spirit of the comment. He says, I actually respect the Bucs. Win or lose, this game is going to be insane, but seriously, Falcons need to win. Please don't make Adnan sad. Well, yeah, that is the most important thing, really. Is just don't make Adnan sad.
I'll be really sad if we lose.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah, because it can get ugly. It'll be. The fan base will be in shambles if you lose this game. Week one, the fan base is already on.
We're on a knife's edge every week. We're on a knife's edge, huh?
Look, I've been a part of it. There's been a civil war on Falcons Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, God bless you.
Please don't start.
Yeah, please don't join. It's not great for your mental health. But it's over the last month or so, it's just been nonstop fighting, internal fighting, on Falcons Twitter, about preseason starters, about Terry Fontenot, about the right tackle position, about the edge room, about the defense. It's just been nonstop, and something needs to unify us. A win would unify everyone, and the vibes would be great, all around. But a loss, and things will go into the shitter when it comes to the vibes of this fan base. It's already sort of we're on a powder keg right now.
Yeah, and that's just the way it's going to be until this team demonstrates that they can win. I mean, there were people brought up the stat again. Falcons have the second longest playoff drought in the NFL at the moment. It kind of just crept up on us, but teams tend to just luck into the playoffs every so often. So it's kind of remarkable that the Falcons haven't lucked into the playoffs over the past, coming up on, it'll be 8 years this year if they don't get it.
Years,
so yeah. I'm tired of that. I know you guys are tired of that. Adnan's definitely tired of that. It's not good. And sooner or later, like fans are on the knife's edge because of that, because the disappointment is so close to the surface. Falcons fans are just like any other team, like in that everybody's hopeful right now, but it doesn't take much to shatter that confidence. And the locker room is more similar to the fan base than I think people maybe want to believe. Like the players' confidence might also be on the knife's edge. So,
and here's the thing, man. Like I feel like it's sort of a night and day difference going into this year versus last year. Like last year, we were going into the season, and of course, there's always going to be positive, negative, optimistic, pessimistic. Like you do you be a fan however you want to be a fan. But it felt last year like there was a lot more general optimism when it came to the Falcons, not just in the fan base, but in the national media and everything all around. I feel like it was sort of like, yeah, 10 wins, like absolutely, this team is winning 10 games. This team is winning this division. You got Kirk Cousins. You enhanced this team, this defense over the last couple of years, and it's all going to be great. It's all going to be it's all going to be wonderful. And we went into last season saying, yeah, this has to be the year. Like this has to be the year. Like if the Falcons win another, I remember saying on one of these shows leading up to the season, before the season started, if the Falcons win 7 games again this year, then, I'll never trust them again. Like this has to be the year. And they won 8 games. Like it wasn't any better.
Technically, didn't violate the agreement. So yeah.
but I feel like the fan base is scarred. I mean, this fan base has a million scars at this point already. But I feel like it's such a recent scar from last season in that, you want to be optimistic this year, and there are the eternal optimists out there, but more so of those, swing. I call them swing state fans, just like a swing state in an election, where it's like you don't know if they're going optimistic, pessimistic. They're not really trusting it as much because last year they were more so on that optimistic side, and this year it's like, okay, you sort of screwed me over last season. I'm not really going to buy in until you can prove to me that this isn't just the same old Falcons, because last year they just ended up being the same old Falcons. And I respect the mentality, and I can't really argue against that because I'm leaning more so toward that pessimistic side in that, prove to me that you can actually win more games than you lose for once, because we haven't seen that in 7 years. And I don't care what you do on paper at this point. This team has won so many games on paper going into so many seasons over the past few years, and it just never translates to on the field. And now it's like, show me on the field before I can really trust you.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And this team does have to earn trust. They haven't earned it. And the thing is, everything in life ends up reverting to the mean over time. And it's honestly the Falcons have gone on a remarkable streak of being unlucky. Because like we said a minute ago, teams just luck into the playoffs every so often. It happens even to bad teams. Like the Browns lucked into the playoffs a couple years ago. That team's a walking disaster and has been almost every year. Even they managed a 10-win season in there. The Falcons have not, right? So it's just bound to happen because NFL teams are too good typically to have this happen. But I think we know why it didn't happen in the Arthur Smith era, and it's because he put a hard ceiling on those teams by refusing to invest in quarterback. The Falcons don't have that hard ceiling anymore. I mean, the first thing Raheem Morris came in and did was go out and get 2 quarterbacks to fix that problem. And, whether that was wise or not is up for debate, but quarterback was not really the issue at the crux last year. The issue was Kirk Cousins hiding the severity of his injury from the team and the team not being smart enough to figure that out. That was the crux of the problem because, as we all know, the Falcons were 6-3 before Kirk Cousins was hurt. And there's no reason that you should not have a winning record and make the playoffs when you're 6-3. There's just, unless your quarterback is out for the season or something, which was not the case, and your backup is terrible, which was also not the case. It's just doubly bad because not only did the Falcons not need to play a bad quarterback, they had a great backup. They had a first-round pick ready to go. They just, so that's going to be a permanent black mark on Raheem Morris until he can get some damn wins. So hopefully that'll happen this year. But This year, again, the quarterback should not be a hard cap on this team. We don't know how good Michael Penix is, but he's certainly not bad. At this point, we're trying to see, like, is Michael Penix more like, gunslinger, going to be some up and some down games as he throws some picks and, has some accuracy issues, but then has some just outstanding, like, 4 touchdown outings where he's just on fire? Is it going to be more consistent? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Is he going to be, like, in contention for the top 10? Is he going to be more of, like, fighting to get into the top 20 at the end of the year? That's kind of where we're talking. But this is not a Daniel Jones, Joe Flacco disaster class where we're like, there's no hope and we're just limping through this season with, a warm body at quarterback. That's no longer the case. So
look, I'm not worried. Look, I mean, with Penix, I think he'll be fine. Like, he'll be sufficient. Hopefully he's better than fine, and hopefully he sort of exceeds all expectations and is like, that top 10 quarterback that we saw, Jaden Daniels be last year with Washington. That would be ideal. And in that case, like, sign me at 10 wins. Yeah, absolutely. So, like, if Penix can have a Jaden Daniels-esque season, yeah, like the sky's the limit. My bigger issue is when it comes to the depth, like, on the team, because there's going to be injuries. There's bound to be injuries. And I feel like this team has sort of just drafted too poorly over the past few years. And that's sort of really hurting them in a depth position right now. Like, if you can guarantee me that this team is going to have, incredible injury luck, then I would be way more sort of leaning toward that, like, 10-win prediction, because I think that the starters for this team are sufficient, or they're more than fine to win the division. But then it's just when you get into the backups at some of these positions, then it's like, okay, like, things can start to derail a little bit.
Yeah. And so it's a thing for everybody, and the Falcons are going to have to weather it too. Last year, the offensive line depth was tested as well, and thankfully none of those injuries were season-ending, but, they missed Drew Dalman for more than half the year, which is, presumably why the team has, but the depth is worse now. Like, I agree with you.
Storm Norton was one of the best backup centers in the league last year. Storm Norton missed his time this year, and it's I don't think Javon Gwynn's one of the best backup centers in the league. Like, that's just an example.
Yeah, no, Javon Gwynn terrifies me. There's no doubt about that. So hopefully we won't have to unlock that nightmare. But yeah, I mean, we're already going into the season with the right tackle done for the year. We're hoping to get Storm Norton back and that he can be, like, as good as he looked, previously, which was, like, maybe slightly above average right tackle overall, above average pass protector, pretty average run blocker. We have no idea what to expect from Elijah Wilkinson. More than likely it will be bad, but there is a universe maybe where he's, like, solid. So that's what I'm hoping for. If he could just be solid, like a solid replacement, then that's kind of what we're hoping for, and just kind of working around that. But we're already testing it, so they need to have some injury luck there, no doubt. Real quick, we got an interlude from Jason Gaines with the $2 asking about our thoughts on Thomas Dimitroff joining the Saints as a consultant. Jason considers him a traitor now, as I do. And also, I hope that he runs that team into the ground, which is what he did to the Falcons in 2019 and 2020. Personally, I think it's absolutely perfect, and it shows that the Saints are absolutely not considering resetting that team. Because all Thomas Dimitroff did in, like, the last years of his tenure here, where, like, the Falcons desperately needed to hit the reset button and just kept doubling down on not doing that. The Saints brought in Thomas Dimitroff to be a yes man for Mickey Loomis to continue doing what he's doing. So, yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. Yeah.
There's a reason why Thomas Dimitroff hasn't had a job since the Falcons fired him in 2020. I know I think, as far as we know, the only, like, interview he's even had was with the Lions. And I mean, the Lions dodged that bullet. But I mean, he became a podcaster for a little bit. I don't think that really went anywhere. And I think, yeah, like, Thomas Dimitroff, like, I feel like his sort of time of being, like, a good GM has passed. I think he was a good GM for the Falcons from, like, 2008 through, like, 2011, 12-ish. 2011, like, around there. And then, like, honestly, probably should have been gone with Mike Smith, like, after 2014. But yeah, no, I mean, hopefully this even means that they're gonna look. I'm all for it. I'm all for Dimitroff going to the Saints. I would be all for even them transitioning this power over from Loomis to Thomas Dimitroff as possibly their next in line general manager. Because Mickey Loomis, I don't think he's too young. Like, how old is Mickey Loomis?
I don't know. That's a good
Yeah,
question.
he's 70. Like,
Yeah.
Mickey Loomis is what, 69, 70? Like, he's not really a spring chicken as the older heads would say. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, the Saints, Trojan horse Terry Fontenot here. Maybe we can Trojan horse like Thomas Dimitroff over there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm interested to see how that plays out for them. But I think Jason's on the right track about that. Probably not going very well. Then we have Alex Foster with the $5 saying, if we could just win every game this season in postseason, I think that might convince some people. Let's try that. Yeah, that's a great strategy, Alex. I don't know why the Falcons don't do that on. I think Alex just figured this whole thing out.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like the old Mike Smith mantra when the team needed to win out. Just go 1-0 every week. Every week, just 1-0.
Easy. Yeah, easy peasy. So, oh boy. Yeah. At this point, the Falcons just need to convince everyone that they can do it, right? Like, I mean, we haven't really seen them do it, and they have to find a way to do it. They have to find a way to carry it through more than just the opening of the season. They've had some years where they've started reasonably well. Last year's a good example of that. I mean, week 1 notwithstanding, 6-3. Like, everybody's buying in. We've doubled up our win-loss. We're feeling good. And, then what happens, right? We're not going to linger on that anymore. But, that was an opportunity, a gift-wrapped opportunity for this team to win 10 games. They couldn't do it. And I think there were many mistakes made, right? There were major coaching questions on Raheem Morris's part and on, I think, Jimmy Lake's part that were brought to the forefront. And, kudos to the Falcons immediately moving on from Jimmy Lake, because I think we all figured out pretty quick that was a disastrous hire. And again, it's another black mark for Morris, who it's like, man, you can't just hire your buddies, right? Now, Jeff Ulbrich is another buddy of Raheem Morris, but at least Jeff Ulbrich has an NFL track record of being a good defensive coordinator. So at least we have that to lean on. And I think that's, beyond the Penix stuff, which I do feel really good about Penix being just a good quarterback overall this year. I think that the defense will be fine, and that might be an even bigger deal for this team. Like, this is not going to be one of the NFL's best defenses. Do not confuse me. But I think we could see this team, finish in the late teens. Like, to me, 18th is what I'm, looking at. Like, if they could be the 18th defense, and, you look at their stats last year, and you're like, oh, well, they were just the 23rd defense. Where it mattered, they were not, because guess what? They were the 31st ranked third down defense. They led 45% third down conversion rate. That killed them. It killed their time of possession. It killed their ability to stop teams at all. Yes, in terms of total yardage, they were just 23rd, but they were the worst, arguably the worst, or the second worst third down defense, and that's much more important than raw yardage allowed. So, they got to get that number into the 18th-ish range. If they can get the defense up to that 18th-ish range, that third down defense number into that 18th-ish range, that red zone scoring percentage where they were 28th, get that up a little bit into that 18th-ish range. That could be just as important as the offense being good. So
look, you guys are going to call me a hater. I don't care. Call me a hater.
Adnan, a hater? What?
I'm taking Aaron Freeman's crown apparently over the last couple of years. It would be, I feel like this team's ceiling is more so that what we want the reality to be, which is being that sort of mid-tier team, maybe a slightly below average defense, but it sort of feels like so much has to go right. And so many players have to sort of make these big leaps, make these big steps. And so many players have to hit their ceiling just for this team to possibly be, in reality, the 17th best defense or the 18th best defense. And I mean, obviously, you're putting a lot on the shoulders of your edge guys, Pierce and Jalen Walker. And, these guys were first round picks, but it's kind of tricky to rely on two rookies, especially rookie edge guys, because when it comes to ends and when it comes to pass rushers, that's sort of a bit more difficult to adjust from college to the NFL. Along with, adjusting as a cornerback and obviously adjusting as a quarterback. I think those are the two most difficult transitions from college to the NFL. But then right behind them in third place is probably being an edge guy, because these NFL tackles and these NFL offensive linemen are just worlds better than those college guys. So, you're relying on Pierce to have that major impact year one, which, hopefully he does. You're relying on this team to stay healthy, like very healthy, like on the defense. You're relying on a David Onyemata, bounce back season. You're relying on Rook to really make a big leap. You're relying on, Dorless or Harrison to give you anything. You're relying on your corners to, stay healthy. You're relying on a big year one impact from both Bowman and Xavier Watts. It just feels like a lot. It feels like a lot of stuff that you're really sort of gambling to go right. And, stuff, that many things doesn't really tend to go right for that many teams all at once. So, I mean, we're all hopeful. I'm very hopeful, but I'm kind of thinking that this defense is going to be more so, in those mid-20s than they are in the mid to late teens this year.
Yeah. I mean, I just find it hard to believe that they'll get worse than last year on defense. I think Jimmy Lake was god awful from a schematic perspective, and like we saw basically it all go wrong for them last year, right? Like that defense regressed hugely. And the one thing you can hang your hat on defense is that it's not consistent year to year. Like it's way less consistent year to year than offense. Big swings can happen. We just saw it last year with the Falcons. They went from looking competent to being bad, like again. And that's very common with defense. It swings wildly. So, they could easily swing forward instead of backwards, right? And again, that's the optimistic take. They could also swing worse, but to me, it's like I just think schematically they were working from such a bad place that alone is a big boost. And yes, we have to see how these rookies look, how these guys are going to perform. But I just think that they were held back to such a large extent by that Lake defense that was basically like, we're going to sit on our hands and we'll blitz, and yeah, we're going to play just soft coverage and just give up just easy completions all game. And it looked awful. Like it looked awful. It was awful. It produced like reasonably like meaty, like, I mean, it produced below average counting stats in terms of points and yardage allowed, but the proof is in the pudding. 31st and third down conversion rate allowed. That's a big kicker. And also, like, the offense is the other side of the coin, right? If you can have a really good offense, typically you're going to have a much better defense as a result. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think Adnan is perfectly justified in questioning whether we should believe that a change will happen in a positive direction, because it often hasn't been the case for Atlanta. So I don't think that's unreasonable in the slightest, but I choose to believe. I hit you with the X-Files reference. I want to believe.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, look, you're not going to get any argument out of me that Jimmy Lake was terrible last year and that, that was sort of a disaster hire from the beginning. Like right from the start, it was like, oh, Jimmy Lake, really? Why?
Who?
and I mean, everyone was sort of justified in their criticisms of it. Hopefully there will be, there will be a big enhancement. Jeff Ulbrich is a legitimate defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's been a legitimate defensive coordinator in the NFL for a while now. So, I do think that there will be a step forward when it comes to schematics, when it comes to, the actual like coaching of the defense. But then, I think it's fair to question, the players on the field as well. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it will be, more of your optimistic take is what's going to actually happen, because I don't want to be right. Like I don't like being right in terms of like when I'm negative. It's just sort of like I'm at that point, just like a lot of people in the fan base, of prove to me that this team can like do it on the field, because at this point it's like the doubts are gonna be there until this team can actually win more games than they lose.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the year they have to do it because the pressure's on. They've invested a lot of effort in it, and there needs to finally be some forward momentum, like a step forward. This is the year they have to do it, and I believe still that they will. Like, the McGarry loss is terrible. I do think it's better that it happened now as opposed to like if he was just lost like the second snap of this week 1 game, right? Like, at least they've had ample opportunity to let Alex Wilkinson prepare. How much difference that makes, I guess we'll see. But this is the time. They got to do it. Yeah.
I will say, I do think this defense is going to be pretty solid next year, like in 2026, just because I feel like going from year 1 just because it's a lot of reliance on rookies. And I think those guys going into year 2 and Rook going into year 3, like next year, I think is going to be like, and also they're going to like, make some depth signings and make some like real signings, like, to bolster the defense with all the cap space. I think next year is the year when we can actually like hang our hat on it a little bit and be like, this actually could be a really average defense, which would be a big win, a huge win for the Falcons. But this year, I'm just a little skeptical when it comes to like 2025. But
yeah,
I think they have gotten the pieces to like build it long term.
Yeah, I think like they will maybe not look great in this early stretch, right? Because again, it's kind of a murderer's row of offenses they have to play, other than Carolina. It's going to look.
You would never guess that listening to Panthers fans. Like they're
Panthers fans are like
the second coming right now.
Well, I think Panthers fans like are in that situation where like they were so bad for several years that like at the first sign of opportunity, it's like 0 to 100. The Falcons have been like mediocre for a long time, so we're like, yeah, like we're not talking any shit, and we're also not like over enthused now that like because we just don't fall for it anymore. But I think Panthers fans are like they've been like so depressed that this is like their opportunity to launch into the stratosphere, and like they don't really care if they're wrong.
Yeah. And just like Icarus, they're going to fly too close to the sun and they're going to come crashing down this year.
Yeah, most likely. I do think when we hit that soft middle, I think we could see this defense like really sort of hit it. Like maybe by then, like Watts and Bowman, like I think it's good that they're playing them early. Like this is a rough stretch. They're going to be tough games anyway. Like get these guys reps against the best teams on the schedule. So hopefully by the time we get to the soft part, like they're confident, they're ready to go, and this defense can hit the ground running, and just the team as a whole can just finish really strong, because that's what they're going to need to win, to make the playoffs this year.
You want to hear my proposal for week 1?
Sure.
Or what do you think the defense should do?
Yep.
So I don't know if you remember, but the 2014 New England Patriots, if we can go all the way back, they had Darrelle Revis on that team as a first-team All-Pro. I'm not saying Terrell is Darrelle Revis, but for the Falcons, AJ Terrell is like our lockdown cornerback. Tell me what you think of this. So what the Patriots used to do in 2014, Bill Belichick was a genius, obviously, at always taking away the other team's best player. What he would do is he would put Revis on the other team's number 2 wide receiver and blanket him, and then he would send safety help and double team the opposing team's number 1 all game. I think the Falcons should consider that in this game. Basically, put Terrell on Emeka Egbuka, and, you put Mike Hughes on Evans, not one-on-one. I'm not saying put Hughes on an island against Evans, but give Hughes safety help every single time. Like, shade the safety help over to Mike Evans every single time. That way you sort of, hopefully take away Evans or completely limit Evans with the double team. And I mean, Evans isn't exactly Justin Jefferson at this stage of his career. I think that would work. And then, AJ Terrell, we know Emeka Egbuka is a very good player. I think he's going to be a very good receiver in this league, but this is his first game ever. AJ Terrell should be, shutting him down in a one-on-one matchup. Like you should be able to put Terrell against him on an island and take him away. Obviously, it'll be like one-on-one coverage elsewhere, but at that point, you've sort of taken away their like top 2 weapons, and you're forcing Sterling Shepard to beat you, you're forcing Cade Otton to beat you, I can live with that. I can live with them having to rely on those guys to beat you. But yeah, I feel like that's something, just in that sort of Bill Belichick like mold. And it worked for the Patriots in 2014. Like they won the Super Bowl and Revis was first team All Pro and all that. But I would definitely consider that this game and even next game against the Buccaneers, just given the fact that the Vikings. I keep confusing the Bucs and Vikings, the entire episode. My apologies for that. But just given the fact that Godwin's out and McMillan's out, I feel like you can sort of really take advantage of that and have that opportunity to really sort of like take away their two best players. And then all of a sudden their passing game is relying on, the ghost of Sterling Shepard at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a good idea. I suspect that might be their strategy because, Terrell one-on-one against Evans hasn't always performed the best anyway. Evans seems to kind of take advantage of what Terrell wants to do, which is to play him very aggressively. I think you're on to probably what they should do, which is just trust Terrell to shut down the number 2. And then, Hughes was very solid last year.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think you just shade, like you said, just shade safety help. Mike Evans is still very good. This is nothing against Mike Evans, but he's also 32 this year. So he's not full speed Mike Evans anymore. He's still very good and very dangerous, extremely physical, very good at the catch point. Those things aren't going to change. But I don't think you have to worry about Mike Evans cooking Mike Hughes down the field anymore. You just need to have a safety there to prevent him from getting a contested catch opportunity or to make it a lot messier to throw that ball to Mike Evans. And so I totally agree with you. I think that's what they should do, or at least give that a try. And then, if Terrell's getting absolutely roasted by Mike Evans, then, or if Terrell, if Hughes can't hold up, then maybe you go to Terrell. I also wouldn't be shocked if they just trust Hughes on Igbukah and they feel good about that matchup. And then they do what you said, but they just put Terrell and a safety on Evans, and they're like, we're taking Evans away. Evans is not going to beat us, and they just trust Hughes to hold up against Igbukah, and maybe I could see that being we're going to dedicate to Evans, and then we're going to focus on Bucky Irving, basically. We're going to try to shut down the run game and stop Mike Evans, and that's our major objectives. And we'll let Igbukah go. We'll see if Hughes can handle Igbukah one-on-one. I wouldn't be shocked if they start that way, and if Hughes has trouble there, maybe they switch it up at halftime or something. But I think both strategies could have merit. This is probably the conversations they're having. So,
yeah, I mean, Igbukah's this is his first game ever. So you basically, I think you do need to you need to lean toward trying to send help against Mike Evans either way, and then sort of, force Igbukah to beat you one-on-one, have him prove that he can beat you one-on-one. And I mean, that's why I suggest Terrell, just because, I mean, come on, Terrell, you're making all this money, you should be handling a rookie. I don't care, how good he can, possibly be this year. But yeah, I don't know, Mike Hughes is also another, Mike Hughes had a very good year last year. I was actually very happy that the team extended Mike Hughes. I think Hughes has, in his career, been a very, very good cornerback on the outside. The one year when he wasn't very good is when the Falcons played him at nickel. And, that's just him out of position. He just can't play nickel. It sort of is what it is. And that sort of gave him some bad PR in the fan base. But if you were paying attention last year, Hughes was, I think, one of the more pleasant parts of this defense last season. And I fully trust Mike Hughes as the team's cornerback too this year.
Yeah. So I think he's also an asset, and that I think you can trust him one-on-one against wide receiver twos. So I also wonder if they try that route. So I'm curious to see how they play it and what Jeff Ulbrich wants to do here. Because I think the one thing is we'll probably see a little bit less. We'll see less blitzing and less total reliance on blitzing to get pressure, because hopefully the front is a little bit better. But also because I think they trust the secondary, and they want the secondary to be able to sit back and try to pick some plays off. But in order for that to work, you have to get pressure with 4 or 5 or whatever it is you're going to be running, right? And we'll see how that plays out. But I think that is one of the more interesting things: is how exactly is Jeff Ulbrich going to structure this? How is this going to look on a week-to-week basis? So fascinating stuff there. We got Willie Doc with the final question here, $5. Thank you so much, Willie, man. Appreciate you. Says, who has the most pressure to perform well in week 1? Michael Penix, Zac Robinson, or Raheem Morris? Thanks for the great content. Thanks for good question there. Yeah. What do you think, Adnan? Who's on the hottest seat this week that we really need to see the most from?
I mean, the easy answer would probably be Penix, just because quarterback. We've been waiting, for Penix all off season. Like, you saw some flashes last year, you saw some good, you saw some bad. And now it's like, all right, you're going into week 1 and, you want to really see Michael Penix perform. I'm going to go with Raheem Morris, however, just because I feel like Raheem Morris, as the head coach, could be on the hot seat if this team, has another losing record. Look, I'm on record. I think Raheem Morris should be gone if this team doesn't make the playoffs this year. Same with Terry Fontenot. And, this game is going to probably go along, not a very long way since it is just one game, but it's going to go a longer way of deciding if the Falcons are going to, win this division and make the postseason than probably any other game in a vacuum outside of that Week 15 game against the Bucs. And also, we have been, I mentioned the Civil War about, playing the starters in the preseason versus not playing them. The criticism is going to be bad if this team comes out completely flat in week 1, the way that they looked completely flat last year against Pittsburgh, because then in that case it'll be like, okay, like you saw that it didn't work, not playing the starters. You saw that the team came out fully flat last year, especially on offense, and then you sort of did it again. So I feel like there's a lot riding on Raheem Morris when it comes to this week 1 game, in more facets than one. It's a very layered type thing at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Raheem definitely has a lot to prove. I think the hope with Raheem is that, again, I think this is what he wanted, was that he wanted to have 2 coordinators handling the offensive and defensive play calling, and he was mostly there to consult with them and be there if they needed his help, but that he was going to be trying to focus on the overall game management and team management type stuff and not really be too concerned with the play calling or whatever. Jimmy Lake obviously did not perform that, and Raheem had to more or less take over in the middle of the season. There's no way that didn't impact his ability to effectively game manage. How much it impacted it, that is a totally open question. But I think the trust level in Jeff Ulbrich is much higher, and I think the opportunity for Ulbrich to really handle his business, and Zac Robinson, now not a first-time offensive coordinator anymore, he's going to be more comfortable managing his side of the ball. Maybe that can result in just better decision-making and game management from Raheem, because he doesn't have to manage both sides of the ball or intercede defensively like he did last year. So maybe that'll help him. But yeah, I think the obvious answer here is Penix, because again, it's an offseason full of hype. We saw it in camp, how good Penix looked. We also saw that the accuracy concerns are there on the short throws. And like, Penix has got to get that dialed in, and he's got to continue dropping those bombs downfield, but the short game can't be an afterthought either. And we need to see Penix put it together and prove himself as a legitimate NFL starting quarterback this year. And I think he's got a great opportunity to have a coming out party this week against a Bucs defense that was average last year, right? This was not a great defense. I don't think they really got any better. That's the thing. They clearly needed Emeka Egbuka with how this played out, but they passed up on adding an impact player on defense. And their second-round pick, Benjamin Morrison, hasn't really practiced all offseason. So they're not really getting, they didn't get the defensive help that they really needed, and they're kind of having to pin all their pass rush hopes on Hassan Reddick, who, again, did not practice today for personal reasons. Which, if this ends up being a big deal, just, you heard it here first, guys. Okay, we thoroughly questioned if this would be a big deal, and more, if it doesn't become a big deal, then we'll never speak of this again. But I think Penix has a lot to prove, and I think Zac Robinson too. make the necessary changes to, like, show us you're a good offensive coordinator. Work around the Elijah Wilkinson issue. Stop relying so much on the outside zone that, look, it's just not going to work without Caleb McGarry. You can't 70% outside zone without Caleb McGarry. It's just, you can't do that anymore. Even if you wanted to do that, and I think that would still be a mistake. You can't. You have to run more inside. You have to flesh out and diversify your run game and lean on the strength of your offensive line, which is those guards. And Jake Matthews pretty good too. So, maybe you have to run left a little bit more. Not such a big deal. But yeah, I think Zac Robinson has just as much to prove as Penix, because we need to see more play action. We need to see a diversified run game. We need to see more help for Elijah Wilkinson. We need Charlie Werner to chip. Like, if you want to start out seeing if Elijah Wilkinson can handle himself, that's fine. But if 2 drives into the game, Hassan Reddick has like 4 pressures, you better get that man some help. Like, we can't just let this happen. And that happened far too much last year, where it was like, well, all right, Caleb, you better go one-on-one with TJ Watt every play. And it just didn't, you can't, sooner or later you're going to have to help him out, because this passing game needs time. Like, Penix needs time to hit those deep shots, which probably are going to be the best part of the passing game. I think we know that. And if he is under pressure all the time, he's not going to be able to get to those deep shots. So keep him clean, figure out a way to do that, figure out a way to mitigate the loss of Caleb McGarry, Zac Robinson, and Penix. Just get dialed in and launch some bombs and out-duel Baker Mayfield in week 1. That would be nice to see, wouldn't it? So that's what I hope we're talking about after Sunday, is that the Michael Penix out-dueled Baker Mayfield. Because I don't think any of us have any illusions about the Falcons shutting down the Bucs offense, right? Like, that's not going to happen. So we're going to have to out-duel the Bucs, and hopefully they will. So that's what I'm hoping for. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Week 1, just a few days away now. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Really helps us out. Leave a 5-star review on that podcast platform of choice. We'll be back with one more show before the game. Going to have a game preview show with the Cannon Fire podcast folks coming out on Friday. Looking deep into the matchups in this game. We don't have a ton of information yet. We'll see what the injury report looks like over the next couple days, but hopefully we'll have a little bit more information for you by then. And then, of course, game itself on Sunday, and we'll be live immediately following with Alan Stirk for our first post-game show. Hopefully it'll be a celebratory one, because if we could just get the first one to be celebratory, that would be great. That would be a nice change. So let's hope for the best there. And you can follow Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Anything else you're working on, Adnan, you want to let the people know about?
Yeah, I'll have series history and what if the Falcons win or lose, as well as an offensive line article talking just sort of in general with the Falcons O-line from the past few years, continuity, some changes that they've made, how it could possibly affect the team moving forward. So all of that should be, going up by this weekend or through this weekend.
Yeah. Definitely check that out, guys. Give it a look-see. And I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic. Kevin, we'll be back next time on the Falcoholic Live. Thanks again to FanDuel for presenting the show. And yeah, we will see you guys real soon for more Falcons football. Week 1 is here. All right, guys. Have a good night. See ya.